So I'd like to discuss mobile and social in higher ed. And a lot of times when we discuss this, the connotation, or the context I should say, is often negative. The student that overshares and destroys her reputation via social media, or students that arrive in class and they're texting or checking their Facebook feed. But while those things are important and they need to be addressed, and they should be addressed at student orientation and by career services, I also feel that there's another area that's not getting enough attention, that mobile and social really can be higher ed rocket fuel. They can dramatically push forward what we can accomplish, what we can expect of our students, what we can expect of our institutions. And to expand on some of the things that Scott had said earlier, just to give a bit more context, there are over 1 billion devices worldwide in the pockets of individuals that are capable of accessing the internet. And while mobile and social aren't the same thing, what mobile means is that the social conversation can always be with you in your pocket. In the United States, folks spend roughly 3 hours a day involved in some kind of socializing via mobile device. That's twice as much as they would spend eating. And among Facebook users, among Twitter users, 50% of folks are accessing Twitter via mobile devices. Facebook, it's 1/3 of folks that are accessing via mobile devices. In some nations, the number is much, much higher. Indonesia is the second largest Facebook population by use, and the vast majority of Indonesians are accessing Facebook via mobile device. The mobile penetration of internet use is much higher than laptop or desktop. And as these devices become cheaper and more powerful, we're also seeing the richness of that exchange is also advancing too. In just the first week that Apple had shipped an iPhone that was capable of capturing video, mobile uploads to YouTube increased 400%. That's one device in just 1 week. So these things are embedded in the lives of our students, in the lives of folks increasingly worldwide. We see where the trends are going. So how can we harness these for benefits? I'll show you some interesting examples here. I also want to thank my colleagues at Boston College. Not only do the folks that I work with are world-class researchers, but really wonderfully committed academics. And a lot of these great ideas come from my colleagues. I hope I do some justice to the great work that they're doing. But I'm also going to, I apologize to the literature faculty, I'm going to mix metaphors, but I'm a geek from the business school, so hopefully you'll let me get away with that. But I think that they're good metaphors for what mobile and social can do when they come together. Number one is that they can tear down walls. So we can have constituencies that never collaborate, all of a sudden getting together and sharing. And once we get that kind of sharing happen, it widens the funnel. So we get more input from more resources. And hopefully we can also strengthen the filter so we can bring up those ideas that are most important. And again, to mix my metaphors, we're also going to raise the bar on what we can do as faculty, as what our students can accomplish, and what we can expect of our institutions. So let's see some of this stuff in action. And we'll start first with what can happen in our courses. So the student that has a mobile device in their pocket, we want to arm them with the tools for success. So in my class, I actually started by making sure that the textbook was in their pocket. When I published my textbook, I went for a publisher called Flat World Knowledge. And instead of the traditional $180 textbook model, which is typically what the Dead Tree textbook is going for in my discipline, Flat World will sell a Dead Tree textbook for $35 if you want it, but they'll give the textbook away to everyone, regardless of whether you bought the book or not, for free. So what you're looking at online is not an iBook, it's not a Kindle book, it's the book rendered in the Safari browser on an iPhone. Now, I know it's small, but I have vision so poor that I can't drive a motor vehicle, and yet I can read the book there, so it is a decent substitute. Now, I should tell you, students prefer the Dead Tree textbook, but this is available to everyone. It's not a paid option. Anybody, regardless of whether you bought the book, can access this. And in many ways, this is a superior product. For example, in the chapter that discusses cloud computing, there is a link to a video tour of a Google data center. In the chapter on social media, there is a link to a customer protest video, United Breaks Guitars. All of the book is searchable, so you can find immediately material that you want to pull up. And you can copy and paste the text in. So if you have a question you want to send to the professor, if you want to compile your own notes, all of those things can be done. And when the book is in the student's pocket all of the time, if a student forgets to bring a book home on break, or they're sitting on a bus coming back from an athletic event, they can pull up their book, they can have access. I have to tell you, though, I did underestimate the impact that making a text available online would have. When I had the first draft of this available, I sent a single email message out to the IS faculty listserv that faculty subscribe to. And this is what the Google Analytics looked like 24 hours after I'd sent out that one email message. And in just the first year that the book had been published, I'd heard from faculty from Ho Chi Minh City, La Paz, Nairobi, places that a $180 textbook would never have penetration. So we are a research university. I'm really proud of conventional research that I've done, but I have to tell you, this is the most rewarding writing project I've ever been involved in because, if you have access to the internet, you have access to the text. Now, beyond just publishing books, let's talk about what social can do. And again, mobile and social aren't the same thing, but that conversation can continue and be with you all the time. If you have a mobile device, it's in your pocket. And there's a lot of attention now in higher ed around the issue of grade inflation. And this is an important issue. If faculty are assigning an inordinate number of high grades and not challenging our students, it's an issue that needs to be addressed. But I would also argue that all too often the issue isn't properly framed, because my role as a faculty member is not to produce a bell curve distribution of student performance. My role as a faculty member is to set a very high bar for student excellence, expose that bar, and then help students over that bar, as many of them as I can get over the bar. And social can play a very important role there. Wikis, Twitter, blogs, podcasts all fit in. So with respect to wikis, I and many of my colleagues at BC have a wiki that all students have access to in day one. There is a hall of fame in my wiki that has retired projects, so students can immediately see what does an A project look like. I also, because I teach that there's a lot of underlying theory, but it's wrapped around current events. I teach technology in the business world, so there are students that are assigned to particular areas of the wiki to bring up last year's content to the current year's content. We don't throw out the student's work project from the previous year. Instead, we use that to help them rapidly get up the learning curve so they can do even better. When it comes time for exams, we have an area for students to submit, and they're required to submit a series of questions and answers for possible use on the exam. Now, I only commit to sourcing about 70% of the questions from student-submitted questions, and I require them to submit about 5 times more questions than I will use. But what this does is, again, it exposes the bar for excellence. A student going through this can see if they're a star or if they're a slacker. If they can answer all the questions, they have a pretty good idea that they've done a good job preparing for the class. But if they go through this and they say, wow, my colleagues have posted questions in areas where I should have been focusing more, maybe I didn't pay attention, they can review the podcast, they can search for the item in the book. They're doing exactly what we want them to do, to prepare better and to recognize the areas that will help them over that high bar. This is also an opportunity for swarm learning. If there's a current event or a special speaker that's coming to class, you can set up a page in the wiki and have the students immediately pull together real-time information that can be used to prepare for whatever event that you'll be leveraging. Now, Twitter also has a role here, and we lament the fact that students overshare and their inhibitions go down on social media, but use that to your advantage. The student that may be too shy to raise his or her hand in class will share and geek out and show enthusiasm for the class over the 140 characters of Twitter. So you can take the meager student that might show up after class and kind of slip you an article they ripped out of the newspaper. Instead, they can share that with the entire class. You can leverage students to provide product support for everybody in 140 characters. How do I update my profile? Where is the information everybody was talking about in the wiki? But then we can take that 140 character conversation and move it to long form writing. Blogs are a great form for long-form writing. They can expose the bar of excellence when you have other students reading their colleagues' blogs. They can see what the excellent work is that your peers are doing. But in management, there is some special magic that can happen because so many firms are leveraging Google Alerts or other social media monitoring tools that we have had cases where students have mentioned firms in their blogs, and a representative from the firm has contacted them to provide more information, more context. It's so empowering for a student to say, wow, what I wrote got the attention of a big firm in real industry. So that's another wonderful thing that we can leverage. I am also a very strong believer in the power of the podcast. I think when a student has a legitimate absence and we tell them, get the notes for class from a colleague, we're really giving them a very poor proxy to the classroom experience. And anybody that can strap on a microphone and click the record button can record a podcast. But there are some other advantages too. As you all know, I speak too fast. I'm from New Jersey. That's what my people do. But the wonderful thing about a podcast is as I'm introducing new management terms or technical terms, students can listen to that again. My international students can slow down my speech, which is a wonderful thing to be able to do. And I also instruct my students that I want to see them during office hours, but they have to come prepared. Review the items on the podcast. Search that wonderful searchable book with questions that they have so they are more targeted when they show up. This makes me a better instructor, because if I see a number of students that didn't get a particular topic right and they tell me specifically where they're having a hard time, I will know to improve that the next time that I teach this class. So this is about our current students. My former students are a tremendous resource, and I want to leverage them. They're working with technologies at sometimes much greater depth than I am. They're working for very interesting firms. They're successful. They're younger. They're more inspiring than I can be. So, I want to exploit them, to be crass about it, but in a good way. So social media allows you to tether yourself and to engage your former students. Now, Facebook is sort of their space, so I wouldn't advise you to aggressively hunt down students in Facebook. But LinkedIn is this wonderful professional Rolodex. That's what it's there for. So if you put your LinkedIn account in your syllabus and encourage students to join your network, you have a mechanism to tether yourself and regularly engage them in the future. And LinkedIn does this wonderful thing where they will periodically send you an email that shows you the updates in the network, who has moved to a new job. This is great for surfacing potential class speakers. I can find out who's doing neat stuff. You can find their Twitter accounts via that mechanism or other search mechanisms too. But I also blog, and I've got to tell you, blogging takes time. So as a faculty member, it helps to try to figure out, well, how can I kill two birds with one stone? Every faculty member in the School of Management regularly tears out magazine articles or prints out magazine articles and keeps track of notes that they will use with subsequent classes. Well, I've taken that and converted it into a news digest that I call the Week in Geek, although to be really honest, sometimes it's the Month in Geek when I'm really busy. But I'll encourage all of my students to sign up for this when they're in class with me. There's just an email address at the top of my webpage, which is mylastname.com. And they become part of the Lifelong Learner Club. So hopefully I will send them things that they find are interesting. I also celebrate fun things that we're doing at the university that we're really proud of. And then I can ask them for help. And so I co-lead our Asian field study. We'd never been to India before. At the top of one of my blog posts, I said, Bangalore calling. Who do we have in Bangalore that can help us out? Within 24 hours, I heard from one of my students that said, John, you have exquisite timing. I am leaving my job as a vice president on Wall Street. I'm going to work for one of the leading tech firms in Bangalore. Not only that, but I've got a bunch of relatives and friends at other firms. We had a 5-visit experience. Never would have come about had I not leveraged social media to tether myself to our alumni. Last semester, another example came out. I had blogged about the fact that we do a case on Netflix, and so I had updated that case with some things that were happening in the media. And one of my former students said, Jonna, I see that you're covering Netflix. I'm employee number 5 at a firm called the Netflix of Fashion. It's called Rent the Runway. I'm giving a lecture at the Harvard Business School. I'd love to come over and give the same lecture at my alma mater. Can I go ahead and do that? Now, I really struggled to try to figure out ways to motivate more women to study technology. So this was a great opportunity where a woman that was very successful, a former student of mine, had surfaced herself. This was the first time we had an optional lecture where the number of women in class vastly outnumbered the men. And this continues to pay dividends. Just last week, we had 25 students at her office in New York City getting a master class. She's become a research site for me. Rent the Runway is going to be a case in the next edition of my textbook. These things would not happen without social. And again, the conversation always happens if you have a mobile device. The conversation following the Twitter stream, checking out to see what you've received on your RSS feed, can happen if you're waiting for a piece of exercise equipment, if you're waiting for a sandwich, mixing metaphors there too. Social can really, again, we see the rocket fuel taking off. You're all involved, faculty are all involved in good works that you're very proud of. And social can be a great platform for being a shameless self-promoter. But remember, there are a lot of people that want to pay attention to what you're doing. So if you publish an article, a case study, you can use hashtags in Twitter. So for example, the # AcademiX 2011 is today's hashtag. Whatever the keyword is that relates to the work that you've just published, you can link back to that, put a hashtag out, and it will surface in the Twitter streams of other folks that are following that hashtag. Now, there's another wonderful benefit for that. As academics, we love it when the press pays attention to what we do. The press are scouring Twitter. They're scouring iTunes University, looking for experts that they can interview, that they can get quotes from. And so, just based on the fact that I sort of overshare online, the New York Times, Boston Globe, Business Week have all reached out to me, and it's been wonderful to get that kind of coverage. I mean, if you do things that you're proud of, it's just really reinforcing. As an author, as a textbook author in particular, there's also an opportunity to leverage the community of faculty that are using your book. So I've set up a Ning community on my website. It's Ning, if you're not familiar with it, you can kind of roll your own Facebook, create your own little community. And to be frank, most of the sharing comes from me to other faculty. I'm struggling to try to get more contributions from the other faculty. But when those nuggets appear, they're just magnificent. So for example, a faculty member I'd never met at a university in rural Illinois had surfaced a CEO interview with a CEO in New York City that is a mini case that we cover in my book. It was a 9-minute interview from Bloomberg TV. We assigned it to our students. Everybody else that was part of that community was able to leverage it. These things make me better. Again, raising the bar on the experiences that we can offer. Finally, if you're active in social media, you will be surprised at the people that become your fans. I was rather taken aback when trustees of the university wanted to be Facebook friends with me. You know, I hadn't expected that to happen. But I have to tell you, it is a magnificent thing when these folks show up in your office and they want to support your good work. The more you're able to see and be seen, the more these chances potentially will happen to you. We can also leverage mobile and social to create wonderful opportunities for our students. So a couple of weeks ago, the New York Times and the Chronicle of Higher Education did what I would call a hit piece on business education. They attacked it for relevancy. They attacked it for rigor. I think they're totally wrong. I think this is the golden age of management education. Because think about it. It was the rare student that could have been an entrepreneur a few years ago. Now, because of the App Store and its analogs, your students can create their own product at zero distribution costs, access markets of tens of millions, flash iterate on the feedback that they get back. Magnificent things result from this. Real-time, real applicable businesses our students are building. So I'll give you an example of a mobile and social business that our students built. This is, the best way to describe Moglo is a sort of real-world equivalent of Risk, where you gather armies at one location and release them on another spot to take over that spot. And so the first iteration of Moglo was released as a game at Boston College where the freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors compete with one another. But now they have a game board where you can select your own game board, create your own games for other locations. This has become a phenomenon on campus. It's so fun. The freshmen are waking up in the middle of the night and gathering their armies, running down to the seniors' dorm and releasing them to have bragging rights to have taken over the senior dorm. So these are the kinds of things our students can get together. But even outside of the App Store, and as wonderful as that is, students are leveraging conversations in their pockets to learn more, to go up the learning curve quickly, and really to build wonderful businesses. So the students that you see here went from idea to shipping hardware product. It is a home energy monitoring product in 10 months. This is notable for two reasons. Number one, they're sophomores. Number two, we do not have an engineering school at Boston College. But world is flat style. They went ahead and figured out where they could get engineering done in India, where they could get manufacturing done in China, and in 10 months they produced this product. Now, on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog, and nobody knows you're a sophomore. So Rich blogs regularly about clean tech. He's been named to a couple of lists as one of the leading clean tech bloggers out there, the leading clean tech folks to follow on Twitter. But you know, venture capitalists in the clean tech space have followed them as well. And it's interesting, Rich was going to be at our reception today. He had to cancel because venture folks reached out to him online. He's got a meeting that they've signed up with folks that want to fund his business. So it's wonderful to see those opportunities. I brag about them. Folks follow our university on Twitter and hashtags that I use, and more opportunities surface itself. Conversations over walls. I had no idea one of our alums was involved in the MIT 100K. They let us know that our students could participate. I had no idea that could happen. We sent another group of sophomores over there that won the competition for the executive summary competition mobile track. They beat out master's students, PhD students. I never would have been aware of that opportunity had it not been for social media. The guys on the right graduated 4 years ago. They have a social payment service. It's a treasurer on a website. So if you collect money for a university club or a PTA or whatever, it will send out the NAG notice. You submit your information via credit card. It goes into an FDIC insured account. It exposes the audit trail, so you know if anybody embezzled, you would be able to see that. It's called WePay. They process a couple of $1 million, or a few $1 million, I should say, of transactions a month. They've raised almost $10 million in venture capital. They are a resource for my current students. They've seen what I've tweeted about my current students. They've reached out in 140 characters that say, hey, we'd love to talk to you and be mentors for you because you know they're further up the learning curve. These are the kinds of things that happen when you tear down walls, you widen the funnel, you filter up the best opportunities, you raise the bar on what you can do in higher ed. Now, chances are if you're here in this room and you're a faculty member, you're the kind of faculty member that always has their door open. And social media lets you always keep your door open wherever you happen to be. So for example, I tell all my students that they're able to find me on Foursquare. So I won't be everybody's Foursquare friend, but for those students that I want to encourage to stalk me, but in a good way, I will allow them to do that. And if you don't know what Foursquare is, it's this location-based sort of game or app where you can check into different locations and let anybody that is your friend know where you are. And Facebook has this feature, and there are others as well. But I tell students, if I'm on campus late at night and I'm eating on campus, I don't want to eat alone. That is an opportunity for us to have advising time, to talk about careers, to talk about their business. So seek me out if I'm in a coffee shop on campus or whatever, and we'll have that conversation. So I want to be stalked at certain times, and I will let them know via Foursquare that it is okay to do that. We also leverage the app Scavenger, SCVNGR. Students have created an orientation game that's used for new student orientation at BC to visit different sites at the university. I also, as I mentioned before, lead field studies in Silicon Valley, in Asia, in New York City, and we use GroupMe for group texting, so I can send out a single message that says, hey, the bus is going to leave in 5 minutes, you better show up, or we're all going to eat at this restaurant in the evening. So mobile and social, used in lots of different ways, really are rocket fuel. And chances are you have a number of functions at your university that do a really good job, but they may not talk with each other and collaborate as much as they should. But we can tear down the walls among those different physical silos. And we can get the conversations going into a wider funnel. And we can filter the very best efforts forward. We can raise the bar on what we're doing. And what we get is this virtuous cycle of benefits that bleeds over from area to area to area and makes our institutions stronger. So I've mentioned today a bunch of ideas. I'm sure you folks have wonderful ideas to share as well. Remember, our Twitter tag is AcademiX 2011. You can find me via my last name on Twitter or mylastname.com on the web. Let's start the sharing. Thank you very much.